They thought Earth would beg. They thought we'd crawl back, like dogs who'd lost their place at the table. But they didn't know us. They never did. My name's Commander Dren Halford. 20 years I served the Terran fleet. I've seen war. I've watched friends vaporized in silence, floating above moons no one remembers. But nothing compared to that damn day we cut ties with the Galaxy Council. One broadcast. That's all it took. One cold, steel-eyed message from the Earth Assembly, sent straight to the galactic seat on Venkur 9. Effective immediately, Earth secedes from the Galaxy Council. We are no longer bound by its laws, obligations, or treaties. Silence followed. Then panic. The Council's serene order, that shiny, polished lie they fed the stars, collapsed like a rusted beam under pressure. Because Earth wasn't just a planet. We were a factory, a military powerhouse, a cultural infection they'd let grow because it made them rich. And now, the infection went rogue. The first week was chaos. Trade lanes shut down. Council ships were denied refuel at Terran stations. Orbital patrols vanished from disputed sectors. Mercenaries, human ones, stopped answering to Council tags. Even colonies on the fringe, long ignored by Earth, suddenly got Terran arms shipments with no strings attached. Me? I was stationed aboard the Vulture's Maw, a Black Ops cruiser stationed at the edge of the Arcan Expanse. I didn't get the luxury of watching history from a safe room. I had to lead my men through it. And on day 3, the Council made its move. A patrol fleet under Council authority tried to seize our outpost at Saren 5, said it was a necessary occupation to maintain peace. Bullshit. They wanted to make an example. Remind the rest of the galaxy who still held the leash. We reminded them instead. 3 Terran destroyers intercepted the fleet. No warning. No hail. Just opened up with torpedoes and kinetic rippers. By the time I arrived with the Vulture's Maw, the Council ships were floating wreckage. No survivors. No mercy. A message in blood. The Council called it barbaric. We called it overdue. And you know what changed? Nothing. Not for us. We didn't mourn. We didn't hesitate, because every one of us remembered the years Earth bent the knee. We remembered the sanctions, the imposed sterilization quotas to preserve galactic diversity. The trade tariffs that kept half our colonies starving. The Council officials who walked into our cities, spit on our flags, and called us resource-heavy primitives with delusions of power. They wanted Earth's strength, but never Earth's voice, so we gave them silence. I sat in my command chair that night, staring at the fleet roster. 12 ships, mostly patched junkers and stealth-modified haulers with guns bolted on. Not much to look at. But the men inside those ships? Born fighters, earthborn, ground-raised, taught to survive, not obey. A ping echoed across the terminal. Encrypted code. Terran military signature. I opened it. Commander Halford, you are hereby authorized to initiate Operation Black Pulse. Target, all Council-linked relays within Expanse territory. Wipe them. Leave nothing standing. No explanation. No politics, just war orders. I leaned back in the seat, lit a slow burner, and stared through the viewport as the stars slid by like old scars. Part of me expected guilt, doubt, maybe even fear. But all I felt was a strange, savage satisfaction. We weren't peacekeepers anymore. We were wolves, and they'd forgotten what it felt like to bleed. The order was simple, cold, almost too easy. Initiate Operation Black Pulse. It echoed in my head like a drumbeat of war. Not just a mission, a declaration. Earth wasn't playing politics anymore. We weren't going to send envoys or peacekeepers. We were going to erase, disconnect, humiliate. I flicked the comms open and spoke just 3 words. Black Pulse is live. The bridge fell silent, but every crew member understood. No ceremony, no questions, just movement. We had our orders, and God help whatever stood in our way. Within hours, the Vulture's maw detached from the fleet, followed by 3 fast-attack vessels, Spite, Gutter Knife, and Grey Howl. Each was fitted with pulse bombs and relay silencers, experimental tech developed in Earth's shadow labs, the kind the Council had labeled in violation of sentient rights. The kind that worked. Our targets were communication beacons spread across the Arcan expanse, a cluster of 27 Council relays that served as the neural spine for their intelligence grid. Cut them off, and their ships would be blind. No orders, no sync, just drifting metal waiting to be picked off like rats. The first beacon was a soft target. Relay V-17 on a moon called Cyrus, run by a skeleton crew of 6 alien technicians and 1 half-breed diplomatic observer. We didn't come in firing. We didn't have to. I still remember the face of the relay's overseer. Thin-skinned, yellow-eyed, wearing those ridiculous ornamental bands that marked his rank in the Council's bureaucracy. He tried diplomacy. "Commander Halford," he said, voice smooth like oil. "Surely we can de-escalate. This relay provides critical access to hundreds of systems, including several human colonies. There is no strategic—" I shot him in the throat. No warning, no speeches, just a flash of muzzle fire and a wet gasp as he collapsed behind his console. My men moved in, placing charges while I stepped over the body. We weren't here for arguments. We were here to erase. Minutes later, the beacon tower was ash. We moved fast, from Cirrus to V-22 on Nerelis Ridge, then V-03 on Eklos Prime. One after another, the Council's eyes went dark, and with each burn, their panic grew louder. Ships scrambled, patrols rerouted, diplomats sent desperate pings. But none of them reached their targets. We made sure of that. By the 6th strike, the Council had finally grasped the pattern. They dispatched a task force, 30 ships under the banner of the Council Peacekeeper Division. Clean ships, gold-trimmed, heavy on protocol and intimidation, led by Admiral Tyven, a blue-scaled Riverian who once boasted that Earth was a stubborn parasite that needed firm removal. He found us at Relay V-19. His flagship, Luminar's Hand, arrived just as my teams finished planting the explosives. I watched his fleet drop from warp, filling the black with sleek, polished hulls and disciplined formations. He hailed us immediately. "Commander Halford," his voice crackled through the comms, sharp and arrogant. "This is your only chance. Power down your systems. You will answer for these attacks before the Council Tribunal. Surrender now, and your crews may be spared." I didn't respond. I simply nodded to the weapons officer. "Light them up." Our first volley crippled his forward cruisers. No warning, no mercy. We weren't here to argue law. We were here to teach fear. The Vulture's maw pivoted into the chaos, flanking his destroyers while the Gutter Knife slipped through the ranks like a serpent, dropping timed mines and auto turrets in its wake. Council ships weren't built for dirty war. They expected formation battles, code of conduct warfare, diplomacy before destruction. We gave them none of it. I watched from the bridge as one of their frigates imploded, sucked into itself by a gravity pulse mine. The screams of twisted metal and failing shields echoed across the comms like a death knell. Still, Admiral Tyven pushed forward. He sent a private transmission to me mid-battle. I opened it, curious. "You're a disgrace to your species, Halford," he hissed. "You betray every principle of unity we've built. You're turning Earth into a pariah." I stared at the screen and smiled coldly. "We were already pariahs. You just got too comfortable pretending otherwise." Then I cut the transmission and ordered a saturation strike. We turned Relay V-19 into a glowing crater. Tyven's flagship limped away, engines sputtering. Of the 30 Council ships that arrived, only 6 escaped. The rest were left drifting, torn open, or vaporized. That battle earned me a new name on the Council's alert boards. The Butcher of V-19. I didn't mind. Better feared than ignored. The galaxy changed after that. Council routes shrank. Merchants avoided human space. Treaties crumbled like old paper. Even neutral species began choosing sides, and more than a few leaned toward Earth. Not because they trusted us, but because they saw the Council bleeding and knew opportunity when it screamed. Our influence spread like a virus. Earth's outcasts, pirates, smugglers, and exiled military men returned under our flag. The Terran warlords rose, carving chunks of galactic space into brutal little kingdoms, each one answering only to the Earth Assembly, or, in some cases, to men like me. The Council's diplomats were frantic. They sent envoys with desperate deals, promising reinstatement, trade perks, autonomy. They even offered to put a human on the High Council for the first time in history. Too late. We didn't want a seat at the table. We wanted to flip the whole damn thing. Still, not all humans agreed with the war. Some called us terrorists. Others begged for negotiation. They protested in cities back on Earth, waving their little signs, crying about peace while ships burned in orbit. I understood their fear. But I also knew something they didn't. Peace is a privilege earned through power. And for too long, Earth had none. That's when the Council made their biggest mistake. They struck Earth directly. It wasn't a full invasion. They weren't ready for that. It was a surgical strike, targeting Earth's orbital command. A coordinated infiltration by genetically enhanced agents slipped past our scanners using stealth-class drop pods. They wanted to decapitate our leadership. They almost succeeded. They breached Earth Assembly Hall and killed 3 senior strategists. The place was left in ruins, glass shattered, walls scorched, bodies broken across marble floors. The Council denied involvement, of course, said it was a rogue extremist faction. I didn't wait for proof. We launched Operation Suncry. If Black Pulse was disruption, Suncry was annihilation. We went after Council homeworlds, not just outposts, actual capital systems, civilian centers, infrastructure hubs, political strongholds. And we didn't send troops. We sent drones, thousands of them, silent, precise, and loaded with neural disruptors and gene flame warheads. One world, Avexis Prime, went dark in 7 hours. Another, Telosar, suffered cascading reactor meltdowns across 4 continents. The screams echoed through the stars. But here's the truth nobody wants to admit. They started it. They struck Earth. We responded in kind. The message was clear. You come for our home, we'll burn your civilization to ash. By the end of the 2nd month, the Galaxy Council was fractured. Dozens of member species pulled out, terrified of being next. Others pledged neutrality. Some even offered allegiance to Earth, hoping to avoid our wrath. I stood on the bridge of the Vulture's Maw, now patched and scorched from 6 brutal skirmishes, and stared at the new map of the galaxy. The borders had shifted. Council space was a patchwork of red marks and black zones. Earth's territory, the Terran Dominion they called it now, was spreading like oil on water. We weren't the villains. We were the correction. That night, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, General Miles Wren, my old CO, long thought retired. His face appeared on the screen. Older, harder, eyes like steel under a storm. "Dren," he said, voice low, "you've gone too far." I stared at him, unblinking. Too far was the day they sterilized Terran colonies for overpopulation risk, General. Too far was when they let our people die in famine while selling food to pleasure worlds. He didn't argue, just nodded, slow. "You understand what you've done, though. There's no going back now." I smiled faintly. there never was. The stars outside didn't twinkle. They never do. Not in deep space. They burn, sharp and distant, like wounds in the dark. And for the first time, I felt like one of them. Distant. Burning. Unforgiving. We weren't fighting for justice anymore. We were fighting for dominance. And we were winning. There was no turning back. After Suncry, peace wasn't even a rumor anymore. The Council had called us dangerous, unpredictable, savage. And now they'd get to taste every inch of what they feared. Earth wasn't fighting for survival anymore. We were fighting for dominance. No more diplomacy, no more playing second-class citizens in a polished empire built on lies. And me? I was done pretending to be a soldier. I was becoming what the galaxy had always seen in me, a monster wearing the face of a man. The Vulture's maw needed dry dock, but we had no time. We were bleeding coolant from 2 decks, our stealth systems were shot, and our munitions were running dry. Still, orders came down, hit the trade ring at Kalor 3. It was a hub world, rich and soft, a place where Council elites dined on imported delicacies, while Terran colonies died with ration slips in hand. Kalor 3 was also home to the Central Archive, a data vault storing centuries of military records, strategic layouts, and AI research protocols. Steal the archive, leave the city in smoke. That was it. No inspirational quotes, no glory, just the kind of direct, blood-soaked order Earth's new command had learned to give me, because they knew I'd follow through. We jumped into Kalor space under a decoy transponder. For 3 minutes, their orbital defenses thought we were a diplomatic envoy. By the time they realized otherwise, we'd launched 6 drop pods and crashed our stealth team straight into the Archive's plaza. Kalor 3 was beautiful in a way I hated. Polished glass towers, ambient music, soft voices, fake skies, everything sterilized and delicate. But under that clean surface, arrogance, the kind that forgot Earth even existed unless they needed our labor or our tech. We reminded them. Violently. My second, Lieutenant Karen, led the infiltration. Good man, cold-blooded, former mining engineer turned demolitions expert. He cleared the archive's lower levels while I moved with the breach team into the core. They resisted harder than I expected. Security drones, automated turrets, even some council guards in ceremonial armor. Useless. We mowed through them. I stepped over a council warden who tried to shield a vault technician with his own body. Noble gesture. Got him a pulse round through the jaw. We reached the archive terminal and jacked in. Terabytes of data flooded our systems. Ship designs, coordinates of hidden fleets, surveillance footage, records of every time the Council had disciplined Earth without our knowledge. It was enough to choke a network, and enough to hang the Council 100 times over. That's when the screams started. Not ours. Outside. A cluster of protesters had gathered. Civilians, maybe a few local students. They were shouting, waving signs, crying out in that naive hope that yelling could stop bullets. And for a moment I hesitated. Not because I cared, but because I remembered being that stupid once. One of my men raised his rifle, aiming through the shattered glass wall. "Stand down," I growled. He looked at me, confused. "Sir?" "They're not the target." "But they'll alert reinforcements." I stepped in front of his scope. "Then we kill the reinforcements. We're not wasting ammo on kids with signs." He lowered the rifle. The protests didn't stop, but they didn't matter. By the time local security forces arrived, we were gone. Back on the Vulture's maw, archive data secure, engines sputtering into warp. We left Kalor 3 with more than intel. We left with a message. Nowhere is safe. Not for them. 2 days later, the Council retaliated. They hit Raiden's Fall, a new human colony on the edge of expanse space. Population, 10,000, mostly farmers and terraformers. No orbital defense, barely any militia, They didn't send ground troops. They sent orbital strikes. One after another, coordinated, surgical, precise. No warning, no demands, just fire from the sky until every building was dust, every field ash. Children, women, unarmed workers, burned alive. We intercepted one of their communications during the attack. A cold voice, alien accent, female. "Let this be a warning to Earth. You do not own the stars." They were wrong. We didn't want to own the stars. We wanted them to burn. Earth's response was vicious. We gathered a fleet of 20 Terran warships, ex-mercenary cruisers, orbital platforms retrofitted into mobile cannons, and 3 dreadnoughts loaded with Sun Cry warheads. We named it the Scourge Line. I was placed in command. They didn't assign me. They begged me, because by then no one else had the nerve to do what I would. We charted a direct course to Meraxis, the administrative heart of council control in the quadrant. Population, 3 billion, no protesters, no farmers, just suits, politicians, and military contractors. They were the architects, the planners, the ones who voted for war and watched the numbers rise like they were just data. So we gave them numbers. I stood on the command deck of the dreadnought Hell March, hands behind my back as the countdown ticked down. Across the fleet, 39 launchers activated in sync. The warheads were loaded, programmed, and aimed. "Target locked," my weapons officer said. I didn't hesitate. "Fire!" The warheads screamed through vacuum, glowing trails of annihilation burning behind them. And then, light. No noise, just light. White, searing, unforgiving. Meraxis became a cratered wasteland in under 4 minutes. We didn't target civilians. We targeted the entire damn system. And somewhere in that hellfire, maybe a few thousand people who thought they were safe finally understood the weight of what Earth had become. Not terrorists, not rebels. The reckoning. After Meraxis, the Council stopped pretending they could win. They fractured into silence. Ships defected, generals resigned, alliances broke like glass under heat. Some member worlds, the weaker ones, sued for peace. But peace wasn't mine to give anymore. I was a soldier once. I believed in orders, hierarchy, structure. But now, I was something else. A symbol. A threat. The men under my command didn't call me commander anymore. They called me the Flame Walker. Not because I survived the fires, but because I kept lighting them, and I hated what I was becoming. Not for moral reasons. Morality was a luxury I buried with my conscience back on Raiden's fall. No, I hated it because the war had stopped being about Earth. Now it was about me. Every briefing, every intel drop, every operation routed through my name. The Earth Assembly, bloated with bureaucrats and frightened diplomats, propped me up like a god of death. But I knew what I was, a loaded gun with a failing safety. I started noticing the looks. My own officers, men I trusted, whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. They talked about what would happen after the war, what I'd do if Earth tried to pull the leash back. I didn't blame them. Hell, I asked myself the same question. What happens when the war ends? What do you do with a man who's built his soul on violence? The stars don't offer answers, just silence. Cold, unfeeling, endless silence. One night, as we drifted in orbit above a dead council station, I sat alone in my quarters, staring at a cracked holoframe. My wife's face, back when she still wore that nervous smile. Back before the council made her a casualty with some policy no one remembered. She had believed in peace, in diplomacy, in humanity. She'd hated the man I was becoming before she died. Now I was that man, and worse. I reached for the communications. "Open a secure channel to the Earth Assembly." The AI blinked. "Encryption level?" Maximum. Eyes only. The screen lit up. Faces of politicians, generals, bureaucrats, all of them pale, too clean, too far from the blood. I didn't wait for greetings. "I want full operational control," I said. "No delays, no oversight. One war, one command. We end this." They didn't argue. They looked tired, beaten, afraid. I think they saw what the council had finally seen too late. You don't cage a monster. You just point it in the right direction and pray. Power doesn't feel the way I thought it would. You expect thunder, fire, the crash of fate bending to your will. But when I took full operational control of Earth's war effort, it came in silence, a coded authorization key, blinking on my console like it meant nothing. And just like that, I was no longer a commander. I was the war. Fleet admirals reported to me. Colonial governors took orders from my office. Weapons labs on Mars, factories on Io, shipyards in Titan orbit, all fell under my direct command. It wasn't about trust. It was about fear. They gave me the reins because no one else could finish what I started. But something changed when I became the man at the top. I stopped sleeping. Not just the dreams. Those had died long ago, but sleep itself became irrelevant. What did rest mean to someone who only existed to destroy? Every day, new reports poured in. Riots on former council worlds we liberated. Earth-aligned colonies growing restless with the brutality. My own officers questioning the scale of the devastation. And worse, whispers of betrayal. Political factions on Earth who wanted to normalize. Open diplomatic channels. Negotiate with the scraps of the council still clinging to power like rats on a sinking ship. Cowards. Every last one of them. But they weren't my concern. Not yet. My concern was Selvaris, the last major council world still resisting. Selvaris wasn't just a city planet. It was a fortress, shielded in orbit, weaponized atmosphere, dozens of battalions on the ground, reinforced by old council warlords and what was left of their elite fleets. They knew we were coming, and we were going to make sure they never forgot. I gathered the Scourge line again, expanded now, 37 Terran warships, 6 dreadnoughts, and a carrier-class mobile forge. We'd won too much ground. We were stretched thin. But if Selvaris fell, the rest of the galaxy would drop to its knees. The plan was simple. Breach the planetary shields, initiate orbital bombardment, deploy infantry units under biochemical suppressive cover. Take the capital. Kill or capture the Council High Chancellor and raise their propaganda centers to the ground. But war never follows the plan. We jumped into Selvaris orbit, and for once, they were ready. Their fleet was smaller, but smarter, older tech, dirty tricks, mines in warp space corridors, ECM bursts that fried our guidance systems before we could lock targets. My comms officer screamed as half our recon drones lit up like fireflies, swatted from the sky. We lost 4 ships in the first 20 minutes. "Redirect fire!" I roared. "Push them into the lower stratosphere. I want those cannons buried in atmosphere." Our ships dropped altitude, diving into the thick yellow haze above Selvaris, blind firing based on thermals and predictive scans. The atmosphere ripped at our hulls. Static filled our ears. Still, we pushed. We had to. That's when they hit us with their worst trick. Blackwave pulses, a forbidden weapon, technically outlawed by the very council that now used it. Blackwave tech doesn't just shut down systems, it invades minds. Neural disruption laced with AI-augmented frequencies that fracture thought, memories, speech. I watched a pilot's vitals spike before he shot himself mid-broadcast. I heard my engineering officer sobbing into her console, whispering names from a family she didn't have. And in my head, I heard my wife. Not her real voice, not even the voice from the recordings I kept, just a phantom. Broken, shattered, screaming the words I buried years ago. "You were supposed to come home. I gripped the console, blood running from my nose. The ship around me bent like it was breathing. Or maybe I was just losing my mind. But somehow I held on. Maybe because I had nothing left to lose. I ordered the EMP bursts, 3 pulses, wide range, high output, burned half our systems, shorted every redundant circuit. But it drowned the blackwave signals long enough for us to regroup. We pierced the shield. 2 dreadnoughts sacrificed themselves. One rammed a satellite battery, the other detonated in low orbit to create a gravity shockwave that snapped their defensive net. Ugly. Suicidal. But it worked. We dropped the troops. 10,000 Terran soldiers, mechs, shock troopers, flamers, neural suppressors. I watched the feed from orbit, Selvaris's cities, so tall and proud, turning into volcanic ruins, glass and fire, screams over crumbling towers, and in the middle of it, human boots stomping forward, relentless. We weren't the invaders. We were the finish line. And yet I didn't feel victory. I felt nothing. Until we got a signal from the surface. A Terran captain, beaten to hell, bleeding through his armor, reported that they'd captured the High Chancellor, the last face of the Council's legacy. The one who had once called Earth's rise a tragic detour in galactic evolution. They had him in chains. "Bring him to me," I ordered. They dragged him onto the Hell March 2 hours later. Old man. Weak. Hands trembling, face pale and defiant. "You won't win," he spat. I didn't respond. "You'll turn on yourselves. That's what humans do. You eat each other. This empire of yours will last a cycle, then burn." I stared at him. "You know what the difference is between you and me?" I said. He didn't answer. "You build peace on fear, then pretend it's progress. We build power on blood, and we don't lie about it." I didn't let him finish his next sentence, just gave the nod. They dragged him out the airlock. No ceremony, just silence and the cold. One less relic of the old order. That should have been the end. Selvaris fell. The Council collapsed. Systems surrendered in clusters. Resistance flickered and died. And for a brief, horrible moment, Earth stood at the top of the stars. Victorious. Alone. But that's the thing about winning a war built on vengeance. When the last enemy falls, you're still carrying the fire. And eventually you have to burn something else. The Assembly sent envoys, not with congratulations, with warnings, whispers of splinter cells, human worlds refusing to follow my orders, governors defecting, ship captains flying neutral flags, refusing to carry my banner. They were Earthborn, my own people, and they were afraid of me. I gave them reason. One colony, Elraxis Beta, declared independence, said Earth had become what we once fought against, said I had become the very monster we rose to kill. I sent a single dreadnought. No troops, no messages, just a single warship with a solar lance. I gave them 12 hours to evacuate. They called it bluff. I turned their capital into glass. No speeches after, just silence. Again. But the whispers didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder. I started hearing them on my own bridge. Young officers, idealists, ones who hadn't seen what I'd seen. They looked at me like I was something broken, something dangerous. I could see it in their eyes, wondering how long until I burned them too. That night, I stood alone in my quarters, staring out at the void. The stars didn't feel like victory anymore. They felt like graves. I reached for the terminal and opened the last secure channel I had left. The emergency override to the Earth Assembly. Code Echo 7. This is Halford. Silence. Authorization. Flamewalker. The screen blinked. An old face appeared. General Wren. Older now. Tired. The last man who'd ever called me friend. "Dren," he said softly. "It's over. You've won." I shook my head. "Number, I've delayed the fall. That's not the same. He didn't argue. I need to step down, I said. He stared at me. You sure? Number. But I don't think I should be the one holding the torch anymore. A long pause, then he nodded. We'll start transition protocols. I stood, stiff and cold, like the bones inside me were made of steel. I'll hand over the fleet, the archives, everything, but I'm not going back to Earth. Where then? I looked past the screen, into the stars. Somewhere quiet, somewhere no one remembers me. He gave a slow, sad smile. No one ever will. That's how peace works. We bury the war heroes next to the monsters. I nodded. Then dig deep. I left the stars behind. No grand farewell, no parade, no speech. Just a single, unmarked shuttle, and the silence of a man no longer needed. My final command was simple. Hand control of the Scourge line to General Wren and lock down every override protocol I had ever used. I gave Earth back its war machine, then disappeared before someone got the idea to turn it on me. I didn't head for Earth. I'd seen what victory looked like in orbit around that place. Clean cities, buzzing reconstruction hubs, and politicians already rewriting the narrative. I wasn't going to be another carved name in a history book full of lies. Instead, I went to Tarsus Vale, a dead mining world on the edge of forgotten space. No strategic value, no settlements worth mentioning, just ice, rust, and silence. Perfect. I lived in an old prefab shelter, the kind they used back when Earth still begged the Council for ore quotas. Power was intermittent. The food tasted like paste, and I slept on a steel slab that groaned every time I breathed. Still better than a throne. I kept to myself, spent days doing maintenance on the generator, and nights staring out at the endless black through a cracked window. The war felt far away, like something that happened to someone else. But war doesn't leave. It lingers. Like a shadow you can't scrape off your skin. Every night, the same dream. I'm back on the bridge of the Hell March. The stars are burning, ships breaking apart, men screaming through broken comms. And then I see her, my wife, standing on the viewport like a ghost, eyes full of tears and fire. You were supposed to come home. Then she vanishes in flame. Every damn night. A few months passed, or maybe it was more. Time gets slippery when there's nothing left to market. No alarms, no briefings, just breath and cold and memory. I kept a pistol on my table, not for defense. There was nothing here that needed defending. I kept it because I needed to know it was there, that if the silence ever got too loud, I had a way out. Then one day, the silence broke. A ship entered orbit. It didn't broadcast a signal, didn't answer hails, just hovered above like a vulture watching. I tracked its movement manually, old habits. The silhouette was Terran, but customized. Long-range stealth hull, short jump coils, heavy plating on the belly. Too well equipped for a courier, too quiet for a rescue. I didn't panic, just holstered the pistol and waited. They landed 3 clicks out. A single figure walked across the ice. No escort, no weapons drawn, no visible armor. Just a long coat and a data pad under one arm. Tall, male, confident stride. I met him at the edge of my dome. He stopped 5 feet away, breathing fog into the cold air. "Commander Halford," he said, voice smooth. "You're a little late to the war." He smiled faintly. "It's not the war I came to talk about." I kept my hand near the sidearm. "Name." "Don't have one that matters. Let's just say I represent people who have questions. Concerns." I exhaled slowly. "You from Earth?" "Not exactly." That told me enough. Earth had splintered. Factions were rising. Corporate-backed governors, former military commanders carving out regions, even AI-led enclaves. It didn't surprise me that someone out there wanted answers. "What kind of concerns?" I asked. He held out the datapad. I didn't take it. He didn't flinch. Your legacy, Commander, your decisions, the way you ended the war. Ended it fast. Ended it brutally. Same thing. He studied me, and for a moment I saw it. The calculation. The flicker of fear behind his polished tone. You killed 3 billion across 12 systems. I didn't blink. They were complicit. They were civilians. There are no civilians in systemic oppression. His jaw twitched. And now Earth fears you, not just what you were, what you might still be. Good. He lowered the datapad. There's talk of a tribunal, off-world, neutral grounds. They want to question your role in the Council's collapse, the campaign's Suncry. I finally laughed. Tribunal? For what? Winning too well? For not knowing when to stop. I stepped forward. Listen to me, boy. I gave Earth a future. I carved it out of dead systems with a fleet of broken ships and soldiers who didn't live long enough to ask questions. You sit in your new world, sipping synthetic wine. And you forget. We didn't choose this war. We answered it. With fire, he didn't move. I'm not here to arrest you, Commander. I'm here to warn you. They're rewriting the story, painting you as an extremist, a rogue general. They'll bury your name in the same dirt they plant their peace flags on. I shrugged. Let them. He blinked. You don't care? I care, I said quietly. But I'm tired of trying to matter to people who only remember what makes them feel clean. He nodded slowly, then turned to leave. But before he stepped away, he looked back. There's one more thing. Of course there is. He held up the pad again. This time he activated the screen. A child's face appeared. Dark hair, pale eyes, maybe 6 years old. She was born on one of the refugee ships, he said. Genetically matched to your wife's records. DNA confirms paternity with a 98% match. My heart stopped. No words. No breath. Her mother escaped council custody during the Selvaris assault. Changed names. Went dark. She died in a relief camp 2 years later. The girl survived. She's in the care of a civilian family now. I stared at the image. A little girl, smiling. She had my eyes. My throat tightened. Something hot and sharp cracked open inside me. What's her name? I whispered. They named her Lysa. The man paused. She doesn't know who you are, and Earth intends to keep it that way. If they decide to make you a villain, she'll never know. I clenched my fists. Why tell me? He shrugged. Because I don't believe in erasing the past, even the ugly parts. He walked back toward his ship, leaving nothing but footprints. I stood there until the wind covered them with snow. That night, I sat in my quarters, staring at the holopad. At her face. Lysa. She didn't ask to be born in the ashes of a galaxy. Didn't ask for a father forged in war and fire. She didn't even know I existed. And maybe that was a gift. I had wanted peace, not for me. For her. For whatever small piece of humanity might still live beyond the flame I'd lit. But now I knew she existed, and I had to choose. Stay buried in the silence, or return to a world that hated me, to protect her from what it might become. I shut off the holopad, not to forget, but to prepare. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at that holopad like it might disappear. Her face, Lysa's, was too real to ignore now. It wasn't just data or speculation or some rogue officer's rumor. She existed, she lived, and she smiled. Not the smile of someone who'd seen war. Not like me. Not like the broken soldiers I used to bury on black ice moons and in orbiting steel coffins. She smiled like the galaxy hadn't touched her yet. And suddenly that terrified me more than any war ever had, because I knew exactly what the galaxy did to innocent things. By morning, I had a decision. I left Tarsus Vale before the ice fully reclaimed my dome. Took only what I needed, The holopad, my old sidearm, and a worn, grease-stained copy of Earth's last star charts. No comms beacon, no contact. I didn't need Earth's permission. I wasn't going back for them. I was going back for her. The journey took weeks. I jumped between old smugglers' routes and dead trade corridors, hopping through former war zones now frozen in the cold rot of aftermath. Some of the systems still carried scars: derelict council cruisers drifting near asteroid belts, shattered hulls leaking radiation. Like memorials no one had the decency to bury. I passed through Vexen's Drift, where I once ordered the orbital bombardment that ended a 6-month siege. Now it was just dust. A quiet graveyard where no one even bothered to count the bodies. Every jump reminded me of who I'd been. Every breath reminded me why I couldn't stay that man anymore. When I reached the system where Lysa was hidden, because that's what it was, a hiding spot, I found a planet named Galen's Reach. Clean, out of the way, shielded under the Civilian Protection Acts that rose after the war. Earth called it a restoration colony. I knew better. It was where they tucked away the things that made them uncomfortable. I didn't land in the port. Too many eyes. Too much recognition risk. Instead, I took the shuttle down manually, landing 20 clicks outside the colony border. Desert terrain. Old valleys carved by long-gone oceans. The kind of place where memory echoed louder than sound. I walked most of the way. Not because I had to. Because I needed to. Because after everything I'd done, after everything I'd lost, I had to feel the weight of every step that led me to her. It took 2 days to reach the outskirts. There wasn't much security. Just a few drones, some motion-activated alert towers, and a local militia I could have crushed in my sleep. But that wasn't the point. I wasn't here to fight. I was here to see. And when I found her, finally, it wasn't some grand moment. No fireworks, no reunion, just a quiet playground, a handful of children laughing beneath a rusting solar dome, a soft breeze blowing through synthetic trees. And her, Lysa. She sat on the edge of the sandbox, legs crossed, humming to herself as she built towers from fine dust and old stone chips. She looked normal. Not like the daughter of the most feared man in the galaxy. My chest tightened as I watched her. That same nervous habit, chewing her lip, the way her hair curled over her ears, I saw my wife in every movement. I didn't approach, didn't speak. I just watched from behind the observation barrier, heart thundering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I didn't know how to feel. Relief? Regret? Hope? Maybe all of them at once. Then I heard a voice. Don't. I turned. A woman stood behind me, mid-30s, short hair, civilian clothes, but the way she stood screamed military, ex-soldier, probably ex-Terran guard. She had a small tracker on her hip and something holstered beneath her coat. I didn't reach for my weapon. Neither did she. "She doesn't know," the woman said. "Not your name, not your past, not the war. We kept it from her." "I know," I said quietly. "I'm not here to change that." "You're not supposed to be here at all." I nodded. She's all that's left of my wife. The woman's expression didn't soften. If anything, it hardened. She's more than that. She's not just a legacy. She's a person. One who laughs and runs and gets scraped knees and draws pictures of rockets. She's not your redemption arc, Commander. The way she said that name, Commander, was deliberate, a warning. I swallowed hard. "She's my daughter." "No," the woman said flatly. "She's hers. The woman who died keeping her hidden from the people hunting you. You're a risk, an echo of a war we're still trying to bury." "I didn't come to take her." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here?" I looked past the barrier again. Lisa was showing another child how to build a star tower, a game from Earth, one I remembered from my own childhood. Because I needed to know she was real, that something good came out of all the blood. Silence stretched between us. Then, slowly, the woman stepped forward and handed me a small data chip. "She asks about her mother sometimes," she said. "I tell her she was strong, brave, someone who fought for her. One day she'll ask more. Maybe then, I'll give her this." I took the chip. "What's on it?" "Everything. Records, photos, genetic logs, the truth. One version of it, anyway. You want to add yours? Do it. But no lies, no war stories, no martyr speeches." I nodded. She stepped back. "One condition," she said. "You walk away after this. You vanish again. You stay out of her life, and you do not make her carry your shadow." I hesitated, then nodded again. "I swear." She looked me over one last time, then turned and walked back into the dome. I watched her go, watched Lisa laugh, watched the sun set over a sky that wasn't stained with fire for once. Then I walked away. That night, I camped in the hills. I sat by a heat stone, watching the stars, and held the chip in my hand. I didn't plug it in, didn't add anything. Not yet. I wasn't sure what I could say that wouldn't poison the truth with all the dirt still under my fingernails. Instead, I whispered her name. Lisa. It felt foreign on my tongue, like a language I'd forgotten. She would never know me, not truly, not how I wanted, but she would be safe, and maybe that was enough. I left Galen's Reach before sunrise. Didn't look back. I didn't trust myself to. Lisa was safe. That was all that mattered. For the first time in years, I felt like I could exhale without tasting ash. But the second I climbed back into the cockpit and cleared the stratosphere, something deep in my gut twisted. That peace? It wasn't built to last. You spend enough years in war, you develop instincts, the kind that hum in your bones before anything explodes. And mine had been humming since I left Tarsus. I jumped from the system using a private relay node I'd carved into the back of an old mining satellite. No logs, no traces, but the moment I hit the drift corridor, I knew someone had found me. 3 ships dropped in behind me. Terran signatures, but not standard fleet markings. Custom engines, scrambled IDs, Merc-class ships disguised in leftover war paint. And they didn't hail me. They opened fire. Pulse rounds tore past the shuttle, shearing off a chunk of the port fin. Alarms screamed. I pulled hard left and dropped altitude, spinning into the planet's debris field. Old wreckage, orbital junk, frozen bodies from some long-forgotten clash. Perfect cover. I powered down everything but life support and let the shuttle drift. They followed. Not fast, not desperate. They were patient, which told me this wasn't a bounty crew. This was personal. I watched from the nav scanner as they fanned out, searching slow. My hand hovered over the weapons panel, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. This was a grave I couldn't outgun. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I ran. I rerouted the engine ignition through a manual failsafe, slammed full burn in one pulse, and shot between 2 twisted war hulks just as they closed in. Their targeting scrambled in the static from the wreckage, and I dropped back into the jump lane. As soon as I cleared the system, I spun the nav beacon and hit a course I swore I'd never use again. Home? Not Earth? Benevolence Station, the last place I'd ever worn the Terran uniform like it meant something. Benevolence wasn't built for beauty. It was a black shell of alloy and rust, bolted to a dead moon and kept alive by ancient reactors and spit. But it was neutral ground, off radar, forgotten by Earth's brass, Council's dogs, and most of the galaxy. It was also where old soldiers went to drink themselves into oblivion. I docked with fake credentials and stepped out with my hood up. No one looked twice. No one cared. Not here. They were too busy nursing liquors and regrets. Inside the station, everything stank. Coolant, engine grease, stale sweat, and the heavy musk of failure. I walked past men I recognized. Faces that had once saluted me now slouched over their tables, glassy-eyed, broke, bitter. One of them stood. Big. Thick shoulders. Scar down his cheek. "Commander Halford." His voice was low but sharp. The whole room froze. I didn't reach for my weapon, I just turned. He stepped closer. "You remember Yarlin Tice," I thought. The name clicked like a rusty switch. "He served under me on the Black Vulture. He died on the Drossian Run." The man nodded slowly. "Yeah, died screaming while his oxygen leaked out. You left him there." "I left hundreds there," I said flatly. "You want revenge, get in line." He stared at me, then sat back down. So it went on, benevolence. The living didn't need to forgive. They just needed you to buy the next round. I took a seat at the back corner and plugged into the local shadow net. It took 6 minutes to break into the encrypted military relay buried beneath all the black market porn and gun deals. And what I found made my blood run cold. Operation Reverence, classified, Earth Assembly, stamped just 2 months ago. At first, it read like a cleanup op. Post-war stabilization, root out extremist cells, neutralize former rogue commanders still active in the field. But when I dug deeper, I saw the target list. Old captains, defectors, whistleblowers, and me, dead center. The order, kill or discredit. No trials, no headlines, clean exit. So that was it. I gave them the war, gave them their empire, and now they wanted to wipe the fingerprints clean. Standard protocol, build history, erase the mess. But what turned my gut inside out wasn't my name. It was another file buried in the attachments, a name I never expected to see. Lysa Halford, classified as potential leverage asset. Number 1 stood so fast my chair cracked. They knew. They always knew. That man on Galen's Reach hadn't been a rogue informant. He was a damn test. A trap. They'd followed me there. Marked her. Used her to smoke me out. And I led them right to her. I didn't sleep. Didn't think. I moved. Stole a faster ship from a junkyard down in Subdeck 12. Paid off the dockhand with a promissory note he'd never cash. Set coordinates back to Galen's Reach and burned the engine so hot the hull screamed with each jump. If they'd hurt her, if they'd touched her, Earth would know fear again. Not from a fleet. Not from a war. From me. When I reached the planet, I didn't ask for clearance. I just dropped from orbit like a spear, hit the edge of the colony shield hard, bounced once, and powered through using the auxiliary core. Alarms went off. Drones scrambled. The same woman who'd stopped me before was already waiting at the dome's perimeter, weapon drawn. "You led them here," she shouted over the wind. "You brought this down on her." "Where is she?" I roared. "She's safe, but that won't last if you don't leave now." I saw the kill order. I saw her name. "We know." She stepped forward. Her face was a mask of fury. "You think we're stupid? You think we didn't have backups, contingency plans, off-grid routes? You're not the only one who fought dirty, Halford." I swallowed hard. "Where is she?" The woman hesitated, then tapped her comlink. "She's gone. 2 hours ago. Quiet extraction. No trail." I nearly collapsed. "Where?" "I'm not telling you." My jaw clenched. "I can protect her. Number, you can only endanger her. Every second you're in her orbit, she inherits your enemies. I'm her father." She stepped close. "You were her father the moment you walked away. Stay gone, Halford. That's the only thing keeping her alive now." I wanted to argue. To shout. To tear the sky apart until someone gave her back, but I couldn't. She was right. I was the danger, and the galaxy, my galaxy, was closing in. That night, I walked back into the hills and buried the data chip. Not because I didn't care, because she needed a clean story, one without my name in it. Then I boarded the stolen ship and disappeared again. But this time, not to hide. This time, to hunt. Because if Earth wanted to erase me, they were about to find out what happens when a ghost decides to fight back. They called me dead. The official Earth Assembly report filed me as missing in unknown systems, presumed perished. They held no memorial, no honors, just a paragraph buried under restoration headlines and diplomatic photo ops. As if I'd never existed. Perfect. That's exactly how I needed it. Because ghosts don't knock when they come back. They slip through the dark and break necks when the lights are off. And now, Earth had a ghost problem. I started small. Sabotage. Hit a relay station near Titan's Belt. Wiped a logistics hub in the Polari Loop. Spliced into data cores. Blacked out entire regions of military intelligence. Deleted surveillance archives. Overwrote loyalty markers in Terran command chains. They scrambled, of course. Reinforcements, patrols, task units of young officers who never fought the war I ended. Their eyes were too clean, their hands too soft. They died all the same. I didn't enjoy it, not anymore. But I didn't shy away either. There was still a war to finish, not with fleets, but with rot. And Earth had plenty of rot hiding behind polished glass and propaganda screens. I found the first name 2 weeks in, Director Ellen Jern, Oversight Authority on Operation Reverence, author of the Kill List. She worked out of a fortress installation on Foros, one of the new core worlds rebuilt after the Council's fall. I slipped through her defense net wearing a dead man's face. Her security was good, but she had no war instincts. She relied on sensors, drones, predictable rotations. She thought threat assessments came in on spreadsheets. I killed her at her desk. No speech, no warning, just a bullet through the eye while she reviewed shipment manifests. Then I carved 2 words into her polished office wall with my combat knife. Still here. I left the body. Let them find it. Let them panic. They did. I intercepted the chatter on the way out. Earth Assembly emergency session, Black Flag protocols initiated, High Command alert status raised to Blood Tier 3. They knew I was alive, and they knew I was coming. Good. The next was harder. Commodore Resh Verlin, a former field tactician now working as Earth's new defense architect. He'd personally signed off on targeting refugee planets during the war, places like Raiden's Fall. He'd called it necessary calculus. I called it cowardice. He operated from orbit, a command carrier named the Sentinel Ark, tethered to Earth via quantum sync. I couldn't reach him directly, so I crashed the ship. Literally. I stole a fusion barge from the outskirts of Zevon's Drift, rigged the core to detonate mid-jump, and aimed straight for the Ark's orbital path. When they diverted to avoid collision, I leapt from a second vessel cloaked in the barge's heat trail and slipped aboard during the confusion. They never saw me coming. I reached Verlan's command tower and locked the door behind me. He turned, pale, already reaching for the panic switch. "Don't bother," I said. He froze. "You were dead," he whispered. "So were 10,000 colonists," I replied. "Funny how that works." He tried to talk, apologize, justify. I silenced him with a knife across the throat. Not clean, not quick, just enough for him to feel what numbers on a spreadsheet never could. I became legend again, but not the kind they wanted. Broadcasts were intercepted, edited, cut short. News feeds mentioned rogue threats, but refused to name me. They thought silence would smother the fear. It didn't. Instead, it fed it. The more they buried my name, the louder it screamed in the minds of those who remembered. On broken colonies and ghost stations, old soldiers whispered it like a curse. Civilians painted it on burned walls. Halford lives. The ghost walks. Fire remembers. I didn't want the cult of personality, but I used it, turned it into a blade. I rallied defectors, sleeper cells from the war who'd gone to ground, engineers who hated what Earth had become, even some council survivors, bitter, broken, desperate to strike at the empire that replaced them. I didn't need an army, just enough to cut the head off the serpent. And that head was Chancellor Emmerich Dale, the man who'd replaced the old Earth Assembly, who called the shots now, who had approved Operation Reverence, the hit on me, and the surveillance order on my daughter. He gave the orders. He was going to answer for them. Earth had changed. I dropped into orbit in a dead hauler, using clearance codes older than the government itself. The planet gleamed from space, vast cityscapes stretching across continents, eco-domes blinking with lush greens, orbital rings buzzing with clean trade lanes. But beneath all the shine, surveillance, curfews, soft-spoken soldiers with neural rifles and speech sensor implants, drones flying like birds, peacekeepers in white armor handing out ration pills like they were gifts. I didn't recognize my home anymore, but I wasn't here to reminisce. I was here to finish it. Chancellor Diel operated from the Spire, a skybound citadel hovering over what used to be Europe. It was built on old bones, war ruins, scorched earth, forgotten battlefields. Typical. Security was tight. Adaptive AI firewalls, biometric tunnels, airborne kill drones, anti-personnel satellites. But every system had a creator, and every creator had a flaw. Mine was named Mira Voss, an ex-cybernetics engineer who vanished during the collapse. She owed me her life. And when I found her in the underlevels of New Helsinki, surrounded by scrap and paranoia, she didn't hesitate. "Still know how to break doors?" I asked. She grinned, teeth chipped. "Only the ones worth breaking." We went in during a solar interference window. Mira cut the grid for 6.3 seconds, enough for me to get inside before the counter-AI patched the hole. From there, it was blood and instinct. I carved my way to the top. Drones dropped like flies. Guards panicked. I didn't stop. I didn't speak. I didn't hesitate. When I reached Diel's chamber, he was waiting, hands folded, calm as a preacher. "You came," he said. "I warned you." He studied me. "You could have rebuilt with us. You had the respect, the power. We were going to name a fleet after you." I stepped closer. "You ordered my daughter's name on a kill list." He nodded once. No denial. "She's dangerous. Not because of what she's done. Because of what she is. Your blood. Your name. One day someone would use her. Turn her." I pulled the pistol from my belt and placed it on his desk. "You're not wrong," I said. He blinked. "Then why are you here?" "To make sure no one gets the chance." He didn't understand at first. Then I leaned closer. "I'm ending this, all of it. No more Halford, no more war stories, no more ghosts." I pulled a data chip from my pocket, the one I'd taken from Mira, and jammed it into the override console. A virus, one I helped design years ago, one that erased digital presence, identity, record, voice, visual, everything, from every system. Within seconds, I began to vanish. Cameras fuzzed, files wiped, implants shorted, no more surveillance, no more leverage. Lisa would disappear too, not physically, but from the grid. From every classified archive and tracker Earth used to control. Clean slate. Diel lunged. Too late. I slammed the pistol into his chest and fired once. He dropped. I turned, face burning, body screaming. The override finished. I walked out of the Spire, alone. No name, no trace. They say ghosts don't bleed. But they're wrong. I bled the moment she smiled. I bled the moment I knew she existed. I bled for every scream I buried, every war I justified, every soul I sent to die so others could live. And now, finally, I stopped the bleeding. Lisa would live. Not in my shadow, not under a banner, not as a martyr's daughter, just live. That was worth everything. Even me.